Dean Blandino, the VP of Officiating, joining us now on the Dan Patrick Show. Dean, how are you, buddy?
I'm good. How are you, Mike?
I'm doing great. And there's been plenty of flags being thrown instead of flags not being thrown in the preseason. Do you should there have been a flag last night for the Johnny Manziel middle finger?
Yeah, well, if our officials had seen that, yes, we'd want that flag. That's unsportsmanlike conduct. Any kind of gesture like that, an obscene gesture, we would want that flagged.
And I know the fines don't fall under your jurisdiction, but preseason no different than regular season. Anything that's finable in the regular season, same thing applies in the preseason, correct?
Sure, absolutely.
The big talk this preseason has been the point of emphasis on illegal contact and defensive holding. Before we talk about how it's being enforced, how did we get to the point where it became a point of emphasis?
Yeah, so this is something that came to us from clubs the last several years where they felt that this area was being under-officiated and there was a lot of gray. And so the competition committee got together and looked at a lot of tape over the off season. We had coaches. John Madden has a coaches subcommittee. They're a part of this process. And so we looked at a lot of tape and looked at a lot of calls that weren't made that should have been made, and a lot of contact downfield, clutching and grabbing on the defensive side, or initiating contact and driving through defenders and creating space on the offensive side. So they looked at all of this and wanted to create some clearer guidelines for our officials to make it easier to consistently officiate these plays. And so that's where it started. We looked at a lot of tape. We shared it with all of the clubs throughout our spring visits, throughout the league meeting back in March. And that's how we came to where we are now. That's the process that led to this point of emphasis.
What's been the reaction now that the flags are flying in the preseason?
Well, the reaction, I think everybody is somewhat concerned about the number of flags, and rightfully so. I think we anticipated this. We knew there'd be a spike in fouls during the preseason. Because the preseason is what we use as game officials and what the clubs use just to prepare for the regular season. So we're looking at all of these calls that are made and focusing on these areas to make sure that our officials are getting the proper direction, making the correct calls. For the most part, they are, but there have been situations where they've called fouls that weren't there, and we correct them in those areas. And for the clubs to adjust to how the game is going to be officiated. And so it's incumbent upon us to be consistent, and then it's incumbent upon the clubs to coach and to play according to the rules. And I think that's what you're seeing now is this adjustment period during the preseason.
Talking to Dean Blandino, NFL VP of Officiating. How confident are you, though, that the teams will comply once the regular season starts, in lieu of simply daring the officials to throw a flag on potentially every play?
Well, I'm very confident that's what they've always done. We've emphasized this before. If you go back to 2004, we emphasized illegal contact and defensive holding, and the teams adjusted. And you look, there was an initial spike in number of fouls, and then it regulated itself. So I'm very confident the teams have done this. They've done this in other areas, whether it was a player safety change last year, the crown of the helmet rule. We didn't have a lot of instances of that. So I'm very confident that the teams will adjust, and when the regular season rolls around, I really don't feel we're going to have 25, 30 fouls a game.
The fans are inclined to blame the officials when the flags are thrown, not the players for committing the fouls, which really is forcing the official to throw the flag. What should fans look for when a receiver is going down the field to feel confident that that flag isn't the official just trying to bog the game down, it's a foul committed by the defensive or the offensive player?
That's a great point, and I think when you talk about illegal contact, it's the contact beyond 5 yards. So defenders, the only times they can use their hands beyond 5 yards and put them on a receiver is if they're defending themselves against contact that's being created by the receiver. So if the receiver's trying to run the route and the defender tries to reroute him and basically disrupt the timing of the route beyond 5, with the quarterback in the pocket with the football, that's a foul. But if the receiver is now running his route into the defender and the defender has established his position, and that doesn't mean he has to be stationary. He can establish his position by moving if he has inside leverage or outside leverage, whatever it is. And the receiver initiates that contact, then the defender can use his hands to protect himself. And so it's really who's initiating the contact and what is the effect of that contact. That's what we need to look for. And your point is a great point in terms of, the officials get blamed for the number of fouls, but we're really, we're getting direction from the competition committee, and you can blame us when it's an incorrect call, but when it's a violation, that's the direction that we're getting.
Will there be any contact down the field that won't draw a flag?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's incidental contact. We're trying to teach our officials that, look, it's not just any contact that's a foul. If there's a feel, the receiver and the defender are feeling for each other, incidental contact, it really doesn't have an effect on the play. That's legal. If the receiver is running his route into the defender and the defender puts his hands on the receiver to protect himself, that's legal. But anytime there's a reroute or a grab of the jersey and the receiver's trying to run his route, that's going to be a foul.
And these are fouls that aren't subject to replay review. Others are,
No.
And as we talk to VP of Officiating Dean Blandino from the National Football League, you will have a much different role this year in the replay process. How has that transition been going so far, and explain what you'll be doing?
Sure. So the transition's been great so far. What we're doing here in New York in our Game Day Central operations, we're getting all the feeds back to New York in real time, and we can communicate with the replay official and the referee during a review. And so what we're doing is we have someone monitoring the game, and if there's a close play, a touchdown, a turnover, they let me know that we've got a score, we've got a tight catch at the sideline. I come over, I can start looking at it. I can start reviewing the replays, and I can start communicating with the replay official to get on the same page. The referee then, if the challenge is initiated, he comes over, we talk to the referee, we get on the same page, and he reviews the play for 60 seconds. So we're able to consult. We're able to prevent the referee from making a mistake, provide more consistent application of the rules, and be more efficient to expedite the process. So it's been very encouraging so far.
What happens if you've got two at once, and has that happened so far?
Yeah, we've had two at once. So myself and Al Riveron, who's our senior director of officiating, who's a former referee, we are the two people that will be basically communicating with the referees. We may bring in a third person at some point, just in case. But we've had multiple reviews go on, and our involvement really, it doesn't have to be throughout the entire review. Once we've established what the decision is going to be, then the replay official and the referee can determine if we're going to change the spot, if we're going to adjust the clock. They can do that on their own, and then we can move on to the next replay review.
We have Dean back. Dean, the question was, if I can recall, what happened? Yeah, first of all, did you hang up on me?
No, I think we had a technical glitch. See, we're preseason for us too with the phones, so we're trying to work through it.
What happens if you're on the horn with Gene Steratore, one of the NFL referees, during a game and that happens?
Yeah, so if we do have a technical glitch, then the process continues as it has in the past. The referee will review the play, and we just won't be involved from New York. So they're separate. It doesn't mean if we're down here in New York, if we have an issue, that the stadium can't operate as they always have. So there's backups, there's redundancy. We feel very confident with the technology, but if something does happen, they can continue to operate the way they've done in the past.
And Dean, I get the impression that this effort is aimed at ensuring that ultimately the right standard is applied, because we've seen it not be applied from time to time. This notion that it must be indisputable visual evidence, the old Mike Holmgren metaphor of the 50 drunks in a bar must agree that it was a bad call. Is that what we're trying to ensure the NFL does? Only overturns calls where it is clear and it is indisputable that the call needs to be overturned. That's
exactly it. And that's what you're going to see this year is clear, obvious evidence in order to overturn the call on the field. If there's any doubt, then the call on the field is going to stand. And that's the basic premise with replay. And when we put it in '86, I wasn't around with the NFL at that point, but that was the basic premise is it's clear, obvious. Mike made the point of Mike Holmgren, 50 guys in a bar. That's really the standard. It's got to jump out.
One more topic for you before we let you run. And I know this doesn't necessarily fall under your jurisdiction, this extra point experiment. 7 at least missed so far in a couple of weeks of the preseason. What's the future of the extra point?
Yeah, it's a good question. So we've actually missed 8 through the experiment's over. So we had 8, I think 141 attempts, and we missed 8, which is 94.3% in terms of accuracy, which is lower than the 99.6 where we were. I think what you're going to see is this play is going to change in the very near future. I don't know if it's the 15-yard line. I think we're gonna gather all the information we can from this experiment. I know there were several other proposals, several other ideas. We'll gather all of that. The competition committee will get together once the season's over, and we'll come up with a proposal. I'm sure some teams will propose some things, but I do anticipate this play is going to change.
So as soon as next year, there will be some change to the extra point?
I would not be surprised.
All right, great stuff, Dean. Appreciate some time, and we'll talk to you again down the road.
Take care, Mike.
Dean Blandino, NFL VP of Officiating.